Tell me about your, you collected antiques, and now you have this kind of like a museum.
Yes.
And you want to turn it into a museum.
That's what I want to do, yes.
I
never liked the idea of being an antique dealer. I can't bear the thought of it. But there used to be very interesting antique dealers in the old days. They're not now. But there are a few left. I learned a lot about it. I'm very lucky, you see. I learned all about antiques from my art master at school.
Uh-huh.
He said, well, you'll all be married in a few years' time and you'll want to be furnishing your houses. And that's how he started off with this. And he showed us, we had slideshows in those days of antiques. And I thought, well, my granny's got one of those and my old Aunt Sis has got one of those, you know, that sort of thing. My father didn't like antiques, he was a modernist. He was an engineer. He shuddered at the thought, because his father had a house full of antiques, all dark old bits of Jacobean furniture, and he hated it. So we didn't have antiques at home.
I'm just sort of panning up to
yes,
that. Looks like a parrot cage and a chandelier.
Yes, it's a parachute, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. If you know anyone wants to buy that, I'd quite like to get rid of it. Where were we? Yes.
Yes.
My art master. He was a great man. He taught me all about architecture. I did architectural history for O and A level, that's what they were called in those days, GCEs. So I was quite well versed in the subjects, but I'm not a professional in anything.
And yet, you went on to be involved with architecture.
Oh yes. Well, you see, I always felt what's the popular term now? Imposter syndrome. There was I, in there with all these academics who've all got, you know, good degrees in architectural history and similar things, but I found that I did know a bit about these things. But I just like being involved in things, I suppose. And it was a job. It was a job. That was the thing.
How did you get to be involved with the listing of old buildings?
I answered an advertisement in the Sunday paper, I think it was. I can't remember which one it was. My brother showed it to me. He said, "You'd like this?" And I said, "Yes, that would be a good job." I was looking around for a job because I went to art school, you see. And I was reasonably good at what I was doing, but I needed money, I needed to have a car and all the rest of it, and girlfriends and that sort of thing. And I wasn't prepared to have my own stupid little studio and earn nothing and then work in a pub at night and that sort of thing. I wasn't prepared to do that.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, it just didn't occur to me. I just wanted a job. So this was ideal.
Yeah.
They paid all my expenses and everything, and all I had to do was provide a car. But I could have hired one, which I did occasionally do that. And
you saw some amazing buildings?
Yes. And I given a lot of, you know, leeway in a way. I don't know why I was trusted. my Anthony Dale was my first boss, and he liked me. He wasn't really a professional. He was an ex-solicitor, but he had written a book on Wyatt, and was quite an interesting book, but heavily criticised. Anyway, that's beside the way. He trusted that I could do the job, and of course I learnt from the others there, and I learnt from, and then eventually I bumped into John Schofield. Funny enough, I thought John was much younger than I am. And he turned out when I saw him last that he told me he was older than me. And I used to think, I felt quite sort of paternal towards John. You think, young lad. I met him at Godolphin, and he showed me around Pangursic Castle, which you probably know all about.
Yes.
And there he was, sort of playing about with the stones and cement and stuff, and I thought, this was admirable, this young lad doing all this. Just left school, but he was older than I was, wasn't he? Because he also was very youthful, wasn't he? Anyway, I wanted my boss to let me work in Devon and Cornwall, partly because I knew Cornwall quite well, because we used to live down here in the 60s. The family did. We had a family. We had a place in Falmouth, and we used to let the flats and keep one for ourselves. And as a child, we used to come down here in the 50s and sail. That's another one of my keen interests. I'm too old for now, sailing. So that was what got us down here. Well, where did I get to? I'm getting lost rambling on.
So you paint now, but you don't do the listed buildings anymore.
No.
And you kind of treat your antique shop like it's a museum.
That's it. It is.
And people don't feel obliged to buy
Well,
things.
somebody wanted to buy Ganesh, the Indian elephant god thing, this morning. And I told them that I wanted to keep it for the moment until we could get another better one. I'm building up the collection, but we sell things off. Occasionally I regret things that I sell.
Yes.
Because I haven't been able to find a better one. We're building up the collection. I've got very strong views on art and art history, because I think it's all gone up the spout, and to be honest, and
It's a kind of like it feels a bit like it's very small Pitt Rivers.
yeah,
Because it's such a mishmash from different cultures.
well, it's just like the Soane Museum.
Yes.
It could be, but it's not as good, of course. It never will be.
Oh, it is good.
But it could be good, but it's quite expensive operation, I can tell you,
Yes.
to get good things. I mean, I often miss things because we just can't afford them.
Yeah.
We get no help for here. You have to maintain this Grade 2 style listed building.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to spoil it in one bit. I mean, I wouldn't want to spoil the building. I just really want to have. I feel very strongly that museums should be free, and should be public access to listed buildings.
Yes.
If they've got good interiors. Of course, with private houses that's impossible. But with buildings like this, if they're put to the right use, then you can provide public access. I mean, before, when Terry and Mary Brandreth ran it as a sort of general antique shop, there was public access, that's perfectly true, but it was so cluttered up with bits of furniture, and I don't think people really sort of appreciated the building.
Yeah.
But I like the idea that people can just come and have a look.
Yes. Yes.
And be intrigued. I like the idea also of providing some sort of sensible entertainment in Cornwall, places to visit, you know, there's Land's End and Flambards and that sort of thing. It's all very well. I had to vet what the applicants, the field workers. So although Michael Heseltine thought it could be done by 6 architects in 2 years or whatever, we did actually have to vet who we were going to use to do these surveys. So we got some good people. We got Eric Berry, for one, and a number of Joe Cox, John Thorpe, there are lots of them, really good people. And I learnt so much from them. I don't think they learnt anything from me. But this is the wonderful thing about working with people like that. You learn so much. Going up into the medieval roofs of houses in Devon, because Devon is quite an extraordinary county, so rich in medieval buildings. You wouldn't have thought it looking at the outside of the houses, we had to investigate very carefully in in Devon especially, but and in Cornwall. We made a few discoveries in Cornwall as well. I've got about over 630 paintings I've done since I've retired, and I keep them all, and I number them. Well, I have sold a few, but I regret that. I wish I hadn't. But I number them, and some of the early ones, I admit, are pretty awful. But some of the ideas are quite interesting. So I'm, as well as painting new paintings, I'm going back over my old ones, some of the old ones, and this is one of the old ones. Anyway, this one was done about 10 years ago,
Yeah.
the original. And then I thought, well, this would be a good one to introduce my hobby horse interest into. So it's developed from that. And the thing is, my paintings take on, in my head, a life of their own. And I see opportunities. I think you have to be a bit of an opportunist as a painter.
Yes.
And if they, as an artist generally, I mean, if you were writing a book, I mean, you know about this, Andrea, you introduce new characters in the course of writing, don't you? Or don't you? Or is it all sort of worked out beforehand? I can't believe that it is.
No, I don't know where I'm going when I start.
Yeah, well, there you go.
I haven't a clue.
So you're introducing perhaps new characters and perhaps discarding others.
Yes.
And I suppose if in a novel where people are dying or being killed, you when you don't like someone, you can, they can be mown down by a bus or something. As I'm an old man, I'm constantly thinking of death. Well, I don't know that I do all that much, but I think everyone does. As you get older, I'm sure you do. So you do get quite a lot of coffins in my painting. And some of my paintings are just basically a great jigsaw puzzle. And I like that. It just intrigues me. And I like little jokes. You see, this pig's head, or whatever, this animal head, is the ring at the end of the coffin, the handle,
Yes.
And I thought I'd better put one at that end, and I put it on a hook, and the nail on there. And then the hammer, the shadow of the hammer.
Oh, yes.
And I gave him an eye. He's a claw hammer, because he's like a hobby horse, you see. I've got to get this a bit better. You see, all these forms, they all work together.
Religion, yeah.
They all have to work together, like a little abstract painting.